Hello, this is Jon Speelman with a summary of the first two rounds of the FIDE World Cup in Khanty-Mansiysk. It's a very important tournament, of course. 128 bods start, people start, and it's a knockout, and after about 3 weeks there's a final, a winner, and the two finalists qualify for the candidates tournament next year, so it's a really big deal for the people who do well. It's a huge tournament, and actually I'm finding it rather hard to get much of a handle of what's going on, though I know some of the main details, obviously. I've been staring at result sheets and thinking, where are the headlines? Okay, so the headlines, I guess, are that Radoslav Wojtaszek was knocked out in the first round. Who was he knocked out by? I've already managed to forget who that was by. It was by one of Johann Sebastian Christiansen, who I think is a Norwegian Christiansen, and that was quite a big surprise. He actually lost 2-0, and Michael Adams was knocked out as well in the first round by one of the Indian guys, who is, I shall tell you who he was knocked out by Aravind, by Chithambaram VR Aravind, and that was quite a big surprise. They played a lot of blitz games and the guy got him eventually in a pawn ending. Those are the main surprises in the first round, and then in the second round Hikaru Nakamura was knocked out by a Romanian, was it Istratescu? Which Romanian was it? Again, I'm sorry. There's so much going on that... No, it was Nisapianu, of course. So it's Nisapianu, who's a Romanian, who's now a German. And indeed, I'll be giving one of those games in a minute. So those are the big upsets. And at the moment, I started doing this while the playoffs are going on for round 3, which involve one of them, which I'm just looking at now, is Luke McShane playing against Daniil Ufa, and they're now in games in the second pair of blitz games. They have been bashing each other pretty hard. Ufa beat him in a King's Indian in the first blitz game. Luke equalised in a game similar to this, in a Karo Khan in the second. And I'll come back to that in a minute and see what's happened. I thought about waiting until it had finished, and I just thought, oh, it's going on, and why don't I show you some games? So we'll come back and see what happened in that in a bit. Luke bashed the guy eventually in that. Now I'm going to go right back to the first round and the first game, and probably the best game of that round was Nihal Sarin, he's now been eliminated by Eltaj Sefali in the round 2 playoffs, but he played a really excellent game, if I can find it, against Jorge Corri. Let's see if I can find it. This was a really excellent game, one of the best games of the round. So it's a Kalashnikov rather than a Sveshnikov, because Black's left his knight at home for the moment. And apparently, I have seen some notes by other people of this, he had a long think before playing bishop b2 rather than b3, and he'd presumably worked out that he was going to play this sequence, whereby for the moment he's a pawn down, but he's controlling the white squares, and if black does capture on b3, then after white recaptures there'll be a problem with the knight on a5, or certainly pressure against it, and against the pawn on a6 as well. So they played some more moves. That was threatening bishop b6, and so this really forces black to take twice. Now he played a very good move. I think he could have just recaptured, but after knight c6, I presume probably bishop a6, knight b4, then maybe it's not very much. Maybe white has an edge, but it's not so special. This is the position they reached, and the Sarin played a really very good move, where he took this first, and then he played rook to there, which is a really great move. And most unpleasant. If you take, rook takes, knight c6, then bishop d2 traps this poor rook. No, it doesn't, because there's rook c5. Must be queen d2 traps the rook, sorry, and wins the exchange. So that wasn't possible, and he started bailing out. Difficult position here. White in fact took this knight. I mean, I think that may look surprising, but the opposite bishop position is quite difficult for black because the bishop is so secure in this square and because of this a-pawn. It's not at all pleasant. And so he took it and played some moves. That's a nice positional move. Excuse me. Nice positional move, giving the king a hole. Very good idea in this position with these opposite coloured bishops, white against black, because the king is very, very safe on g2. No more back rank problems ever. So he could have played queen takes queen, but it's still not going to be easy. Bishop takes rook. If queen takes, you must take with the bishop, of course, to keep this past this pawn. Bishop f6, you play rook c1, and it's not pleasant for black. I mean, maybe it's playable. Maybe rook to there, king to here, rook to here, and then what you're going to do, you're going to try to push your a-pawn, I think, and it's just not going to be fun. I mean, maybe black will be okay, maybe not, but it'll be difficult. So what actually happened was king g7, rook to there. Now if he takes, then rook takes, and the rook's already poised to go to the 7th rank. The guy went bishop back. I think at this moment he should have bailed out with rook c8. Threatening to play bishop c3 now and rook c7, which makes your position... You couldn't have gone bishop c3 the move before because of queen to the 7th, but this threatens to make everything secure. Rook takes actually loses to bishop c3, so you take, rook to the 7th, and... Okay, rook here, bishop here, rook here, f6. White is a pawn up with the advantage, but this pawn is weak, and black has proper active pieces. All of his pieces are in good squares. Well, I mean, okay, the rook and the bishop are both on good squares. And, okay, you've got the advantage. If I ask its Sublime Majesty, it says a pawn here. I think when I asked Houdini... on my chess base it said half a pawn. Anyway, I think this would have been a very sensible way to bail out. He in fact started, I think if h4, if h5, then maybe rook b3 is unpleasant. He's starting to cause some other problems. Rook to there, pawn to here. Now, this is... If rook takes pawn, there'll be bishop takes f2, which is going to be at the very least a nuisance. I mean, maybe it will work, maybe not, but you don't want to do that. So queen to there threatens h. Well, if d2, then h6 check, and queen d8 mate. So it stops d2 and tees up to play h6 in lots of positions, and sometimes queen f6 check. Bishop d4, rook takes pawn. In fact, there was a better move, I'm told. Wait a minute. Here, somewhere around about here, there was a killing blow, I was told, which is bishop takes pawn, that's right. Because if rook takes here, you can't play queen takes pawn because of rook takes rook check, and after the king goes back, it's mate next move. And this apparently would have been even better than taking the pawn, but it was very good what he did. So here, rook f3. Now the queen's come off, and the black's problem is really that this pawn is so strong. I don't know if you... I don't know if that was right actually, because it allowed a5. Bishop b6, I presume he hits it. Anyway, he won this rather easily. Of course, you can't take that pawn because of rook takes f7 check. Now he brings his rook back. Now he improves his king. Well, first he kills that rook, then he improves his king. I don't know if black should maybe have tried g4 just to get some purchase on the h-pawn. Well, okay, if white tries to put his rook in the c-file, black can block with bishop c5. But he simply goes away. If black does nothing, white will play rook b7 check, exchange rooks, go and take the h-pawn and win. So if you passed, well, okay, you can go rook b8, but you can go rook b7 check. Or either king or bishop to there and just win. So he took check, back, take, and he could have gone king g6 first. He actually went there, and the guy resigned because the h-pawn is going to queen. You're going to play king g6, h7. If f5, you'll take it and play f6. Otherwise, you're going to win at least a rook for the h-pawn. So a very nice game by Sarin, I thought. Very good game indeed. Let's just go back and see what's happened to Luke. We'll go back and do that. And then we will go and look at something else. This looks like black has done much better, this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Unclear according to me. Engine says plus 0.4. I doesn't know. This is also 1-all, and this looks like 6 plays 5, but black has very dangerous attacking chances here. I think knight takes b4 is well, is knight takes b4 possible here or not? Am I being stupid? Is knight takes this just really strong? Knight takes, queen takes, check. King to here, check. Does that not cause resigns? Has it happened? Knight takes b4 has happened. Oh right, so we've walked into a combinative moment. Well, that really wasn't very bright of Mr. Nair getting... Well, I don't know how it happened, but anyway, that's the end of that game. And all this has happened, and knight takes b4 just wins. So, yep, and he's gonna... If he wants to, he can go... Oh, is he actually trying to mate the guy? He's taken that first, and now he's going to go rook b7 and take the queen. And then he'll be the exchange ahead. Can he do even better than that? He'd like to do even better than that. Well, oh, is he going to do a rook b8 check? I see, rook b8 check and checkmate the guy. So there we are. So that is the end of that game, which leaves Anish Giri 1 up with 1 to play in white. Luke is playing this, which is a complicated position, could go either way. This is game 5. Let's go back and let's see some other games from the first round. Mamedyarov played a nice game in round 1.1, which I'm going to find next. So as you realise, I'm not really trying to get a grip on what's going on. I know that Michael Adams went out in the first round. I know that Gawain Jones went out today, which is Sunday as we're talking, against somebody. Who is he playing? I've lost him. He was playing Yakovenko. And here we are. We're looking for Mamedyarov. And are we finding him? I'm not finding him at the moment, of course. Naturally. That was game 2. This is game 1, so it must be that I want to have game 2, I suppose. Is that possible? This was a game... What happened here? Mamedyarov won that as black, but that is not the game I want. So let me go back. I'm sorry, there's such a lot of stuff here that it's hard to keep a break on what's going on. I'm looking at my chess space again. I'm sticking in Mamedyarov, or MAM actually, MAM rather than MQM, and it was in game 2 that he won rather nicely. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm probably going to do Hikaru Nakamura's loss to Nisipianu in round 2, and that'll probably be enough, I would think. So we're going to go to round 1, game 2, Mamadiyar of White. And it was a very nice game. So let's look at this. This is I was actually streaming, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. I hope. Yeah, you can see I was streaming this one at the time. This is an annoying move because, well, White's sort of in Sugsvang. He doesn't want to. I mean, you can do it with the pawns in c4 and e6 still. And White doesn't want to move his bishop because then you take and gain a tempo. This is what Arthur Yusupov introduced, and I think c4 is rather critical here. Probably the most critical. Now he's managed to get a decent position. I think if take d4, then, well, you can probably go knight a4 if you want to, or you can take, and if knight takes, go back. And you've got a beautiful bishop. He doesn't quite manage to get in d4. If he plays d4 now, it goes here, bishop a7, pawn takes, knight takes, bishop takes. Have to take, because if bishop takes, bishop, queen takes, bishop, the queen's protected. And this is much better for White because you just win a pawn over here. It doesn't have to be winning, but it's certainly advantageous. I mean, you can go takes rook a7, then you're one pawn down. And, you know, it isn't the end of the world. Or you can pin the bishop first, probably. And the game will continue, but it's not going to be very nice for Black. He's clearly worse. So you can't simplify. He went back to prepare d4, which was now a threat. Knight e2 gets control of d4. And the guy probably thought that he was okay here. But Mamadiyar nicked a pawn. If g takes, well, you can play g takes, but then after maybe knight h4, your white squares around your king are utterly disgusting, and you just don't do that. I mean, takes here, you're threatening to play takes knight f5, or queen g4 and knight f5 or something, and this is an absolute cesspit, if I may say so. And also you can't even eliminate this pawn because of this move threatening mate already. So it's absolutely awful. So he had to take back with the queen. And his idea was that White is a little bit discommoded because of the knight on the same file as the queen. And I thought I might have played knight c3, rook d8, one of the rooks to d8, and just given my queen up and said, well, I rather like giving my queen up in positions like this, because I claim that this bishop is badly hampered by this pawn, whereas this bishop is steaming down the diagonal. I'm going to play knight d6 and try to get some tactics in b7 or something, but I think I'm being over-optimistic. It's probably, if I ask the engine, it says equals. It says, alright, minus something around equals. Anyway, Mamadiyar did much better than that. He went knight h4. Of course, Black takes this one. And there is this pin. Queen f3, f5. So the idea is that now if knight takes queen g5, it's quite strange. I didn't realise when I saw it, as I said I was streaming. After here you have this move. Queen takes, 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 takes. And if you do it the other way, if you play e4, you have this one. So either way, Black wins two knights for a rook. But he played rook d1 first. Now I was looking at the time, during the stream I was looking at knight takes f5, because I realised that if queen takes here, knight to here check, you win this rook with a better ending. And if rook takes, you go check, and he has to take with the queen really, and you take this. And you're better in this position as well. Again, this bishop is upset because of that pawn. So that did occur to me actually at the time, which I was pleased. But Mamadiyar played something else. He went knight f4, queen to there, and then the excellent move g4. I don't know if he should have gone queen f6 maybe. I haven't thought about that. And the point about this is that when Black plays g5, knight f5 is going to hit h6, and so this is a much better position for white. If you take, there's a temptation to play knight h6 check and knight takes queen and knight takes knight, but it would be a very bad idea. Probably takes this way, maybe takes even with the pawn, and black is fighting hard. Maybe, I don't know if, sorry, excuse that. So that wouldn't be a good idea, but if you just hold your fire for a moment and recapture, you're completely winning, because he can't even play knight takes this because of check. So he doesn't even get to do that. So it's just a totally winning position. I think his best bet is to do this, which is obviously hopeless. I don't even understand why that's a best bet, actually. King takes, do you have some move? Oh, I can't even see. I know the engine went beep and said that, which didn't make much sense to me. Anyway, he went knight takes, but Mamedov had prepared this excellent move, and now the knights are doing what they do best, which is forking things. Obviously, if queen takes knight, knight e7 check. So he moved to king, and now the excellent move e4. Now, white doesn't like opening this diagonal, which is why this is quite a difficult move to see, perhaps. But it prepares queen c3 check with total mayhem. So at the moment there's a threat of queen c3 check, knight f6, knight takes knight, queen takes knight, queen takes queen. Actually, you can do it. Either say you played, I don't know, some stupid move. Well, h5 is going to stop this. Say I played b5, which is ridiculous. Okay, I can take this, but I can go check here, takes, 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 check. And actually, in this position, I can also do it this way around. That also completes the job perfectly well. So he played knight f6. I think if h5, you can go rook h1 is a good move, threatening queen takes knight. I mean, you could also go queen takes knight, rook h1 and knight e7, but that would still be a game. That would be a foolish thing to do. You just go here, threatening queen takes knight, and the wheels drop off. There are no moves that black has which are at all sensible. I suppose the best he could do would be to go bishop takes this, queen takes this, bishop h4. And clearly white is totally winning in this position. Though, well, I mean, I could just go rook takes bishop here, but I'm a little bit annoyed that he's going to get a check or something on the g file. But I can just move my queen back somewhere sensible and then reset over here. And clearly I'm winning. If I ask it sublime, it's going to say +9, actually, it says. All right, well done, Your Majesty. So, he went knight f6, queen c3, threatening knight takes and queen takes, queen h5, knight takes knight, queen takes rook, and now simply queen to there. If he'd played a knight check, there would have been bishop d4 or something, and the game might have continued a little bit. But after queen to there are threats of mate on these two squares, and that is the end of that. So this was an excellent game by Mamedov, and he's been playing pretty well, and I believe he's certainly not one of the favourites who's gone as far as... No, I'm sure he isn't. Let's go back and just see what's happened in the tie-breaks game 5. Luke lost, oh dear. Let's see. Oh. Right, I have no idea how. And Naya, we already saw getting checkmated. And so we're now... Luke's been going up and down. He completely crushed the guy the game before. So now he's got to win as black. He's been playing King's Indians and he might be okay. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Let's now go back to round 2 and game 1. And perhaps the game of the tournament. Maybe the game of the tournament. Which is... round 2, game 1. Just check that I am recording this. It would be pretty sad if I weren't. I seem to be. And here we are, Nakamura being splatted by Nisipiano. So this is This I wasn't streaming on, as you can see. I did think I was watching the game a bit at the time, and I know it's been shown in other places. So this is a Catalan, and what he's done, if he'd left the knight on b1 and castled, and they could have got a Catalan that way, Nakamura's been playing d takes c4, queen c2, b5, and things like that. Lots of messy stuff. Now, he didn't play knight c6, which is the main move, but he played queen d6, castles, queen a6, which is an idea that's been played many times before. a4, knight c6. Maybe a4 is a bit scarier. Often you get this position. Perhaps you play rook d8 before queen f6, do you? I mean, this threatens to play knight b5. I'm not sure exactly what you do after knight c6. I'm going to ask an engine here, actually. I ought to have found this out. If c6, what do they want to do? Just bishop g5, knight bd7, and just play chess, really, and claim that this queen is very offside. All right. And it says it's nice. I hadn't actually looked at that properly. So he played knight c6, knight b5. So queen b6, knight c4 is clearly not a particularly good idea. So black, knight c7 is threatened, and black plays knight takes, pawn takes, rook d8. And white's sort of morally forced, really, to sack the queen, I think, here, because if he doesn't, he has a pretty rotten position. So he does. And black's problem is that knight c7 is happening if he plays bishop f6. I don't know if you could try to do that. I haven't thought about that, actually. Sorry, I've just had a hallucination. I was taking bishop f6, knight c7, the excellent move queen d6, knight takes rook, queen a8. But as you may have noticed, en route to b8, there was a slight accident occurring, to wit that. So he played bishop d6, bishop f4. Now the engines say you should play queen a5 in this position, and I believe this is sort of playable-ish. You at least get your pieces out. Nakamura played this, knight takes bishop, and I presume he'd intended to play pawn takes bishop, but then he realised that there's a terribly strong move here, which is this move. If knight b5, you just play queen f6, but this move stops queen f6, and it threatens both rook d8 and knight takes c7. And it is really rather disastrous. I don't know what you can do. You can try, if say queen b6, rook to here, pawn takes pawn, then you could play... You can't take and take the rook, but there are probably many awful things you can do to him. I was just wondering if you could play rook d1, bishop d7, but it's not going to be a fun way to play. Because bishop d7... actually, you can just play rook takes rook, can't I? Why not just play rook takes rook? Yeah. So this is just awful. So, sorry, what he couldn't play was knight c7 check, but obviously he can't because of rook takes rook. So, I thought he should have tried to play bishop g4 here. Knight takes pawn, queen takes pawn, knight takes rook, bishop takes pawn. And I thought this looked not so clear. My engine disagrees. It says rook e1, f3, knight c7, getting the guy out. So you can't play, say, queen d6 because of bishop takes f3 with a back rank. So you play something like g6, and now bishop f1. Takes, and the claim is that you can't get to h3 in time. I'm wondering if you can play queen e5 there or something. It doesn't look... It looks to me like you could make some trouble in this position. So if you went here, queen h5. Okay, you can play king h1 and you're not going to get mated. I suppose you do have a winning material advantage, but I think black could make you work in this position. What actually happened was pretty awful, really. He recaptured this way. Bishop takes e5, of course. And you can't take because of the back rank mate. And now white gets total control. Rook takes d6, very strong move. Bishop c3. And now, the black's problem, okay, if you play bishop takes pawn, rook d7 is the end of the world. Because if queen b6, then you even have this move, and you can't even hold d8 anymore. And if queen c8, you can take this if you want. Oh well. I was wondering if queen e8 was a move just to try. Yeah, of course you can do this. That's right, I did know this. Take, 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 and the sting in the tail, bishop to there, winning the queen. So you can't even do that. So he played some move, poor Nakamura. It's really horrible now. That again threatens the rook, and now you play bishop f3, takes, takes. h5. I thought he'd play h4, actually he played king g2. I thought Nakamura would try h4, but you probably just take it. You can just take it if you want to. I mean, because you can. There's no way, black doesn't even really have a check. I mean, you control all these squares multiple times. But I think I'd have tried h4. Okay, rook to there, h4. Now the thing about positions where one side has a queen and the other doesn't, is that the queen is a very variable piece. If she can attack things, she's a monster. If this pawn went here, for instance, then this bishop would be loose, and maybe there'd be a problem with it. But queens fork things. If they're protected, then there's nothing to fork. If we look at this position, the king's completely safe. Pawn protected, pawn protected, pawn protected, pawn protected, pawn. Rooks protect each other. Bishop protects pawn. Terrible weakness in a4 is the only weakness, if you want to call it a weakness. And this means that this position actually is completely winning for white. Absolutely and totally winning. I mean, it's resignable, really. Because there's no way you can play it. I mean, there's nothing you can do with a queen where there's nothing to attack. King, no checks, nothing to attack. The queen is hopeless. I don't know if Nakamura could have done slightly better here, but you could play this in a blitz game equally well. I think he now wants to maybe go rook a7 and rook takes pawn to set up a passed pawn, then reset. Black, would have to get in rook to the 7th or 8th and somehow set up a check. And it would have to be more than one check, because you'd never get a perpetual unless you were checking all the time. So he played c3. I don't know particularly what he intended after bishop takes, but in fact Nispiano took this way. Rook e8, bishop b6, and he resigned. Well, if king h7 you play rook f7 check, and otherwise rook d8 is actually going to win even more material. And if rook c8, probably rook c8 will just start pushing the c-pawn gently up the board. There's no reason not to. I mean, if rook d8 check, king h7, of course is completely winning, but why would you? You just push the pawn. When it got to about c5, then you might start thinking about doing something different, or you could play c6 anyway. Black can't get his king off the back rank because of rook takes f7 check. He can't put the rook on f8 because of rook d8. Just totally hopeless. Let's go back and see. That was a very fine game by Nispiano, but a horrible game, of course, by Nakamura. This is a battle. Luke looks to me like he's doing okay. Minus 0.8. Maybe he'll do it again. Maybe he will do it again. He's a tough cookie. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 plays 7. Geary obviously totally happy. Let's just watch this for a bit, and I'll see if I had anything else. Oh, I was going to. There was a horrible finish at the end of. Gawain Jones was playing a nice game against Yakovenko and allowed a mate. And there have been some ridiculous things have happened. Dominguez in one of the rapid play games or blitz games today, was it today, that he played this great combination that just lost totally. This looks clearly better for black to me. I would not be a happy bunny as white. I would be perturbed. But I think I'd go knight a4 anyway and try to pretend I was alright, and maybe I would be or maybe I wouldn't. It's been a vicious match, this. They've really been bashing each other. Oh, he's gone knight b5. Is that knight okay? Or, I suppose it's going back to d4. Maybe he's alright. Okay, people. I don't know how long I've been doing this. I think about 45 minutes. We could have some of the best blunders. Let me just show you the two worst blunders from today. It's so stressful, this stuff. I think it was game probably 2, is it, where Dominguez did something absolutely mind-blowingly horrible? Or was it in game 2 of the normal game? Surely it wasn't. I'll have to find out. I have to consult my chess base again. Because he was playing a really great game and just something happened. It was in game 4. No, it was game 3. No? Oh, no. It's actually game 1. Where was this? It must be one of the tie breaks because I haven't imported them yet. So let's have a look. Have to find Dominguez first, which is always there. Is Dominguez in game 1 against Abasov? So this must be round 2, I suppose, that we're going to look at. And Abasov Dominguez. That was round 2. I'm so sorry. So I've just looked at. Now let's look at game 1, and we will find a beautiful combination with a horrible flaw in it. So I was playing through this and thinking how well he was playing. That's a really vicious move, threatening g4, and the guy went f5. I don't know if he has to, if he can allow g4 and somehow get a combination. But now White's achieved a great deal because he's isolated this pawn, so he's very happy. What wonderful position for White. Just has to avoid bad things happening, some combination. We assume that bishop takes h3 and queen c8 doesn't work. But just see if I ask it. If I ask the engine if takes, queen here, rook e5, does it say? Rook e5. And if queen takes this, then queen f1. Okay. Bye-bye. That didn't work. So they played some moves. Obviously White is much better here. Teasing him, saying, will you sacrifice? Again, will you sacrifice? And now he played his combination, which sadly doesn't work. Just any good move, but this is not a good idea. So, perhaps you saw what Black should play here. I'm going to hide the moves. Just have a look, people, and see if you can see. It said minus 5.5 on my thing, and I thought, why? And then I realised why. And the man believed him and played knight h5 and lost, but he could have gone check, king here, knight to there, and essentially White can resign. So that was one of the better blunders of the day. And the other one was this at the same time, was this Jones-Yakovenko. I think this was 1.2. Gawain had played a really good game, actually. And sadly, at the end, it's so stressful, this stuff. If we go, we'll just go to the end of this. So they reached, so he's given up he's been out playing the guy totally. He goes queen to there, here, check here, queen. And there are lots of good moves, but Gawain plays that. And it's a 8-hour or 12-hour home trip home. It's a grisly tournament in some ways. It's awful, these poor boys are bashing however many bells it is you bash out of each other. I think it's 9, isn't it, you bash out of each other? Certainly a certain number of bells, whatever the approved number is. And at the end of it, it all comes down to some awful blunder. Some really vile blunder. And one thing I would say is that Grandmasters blunder as much as everybody else. This is now perfectly okay for White, actually, sadly. This is actually quite a good, reasonable position. And Grandmaster's blundered just as much as everybody else, but the reason that ordinary players don't realise it so much is because the blunders are only when they're under stress. If people aren't under stress, then they don't blunder. And so, there's nothing really you can do about it. You do blunder quite often. This is better for white now, actually, because, or at least it's, yeah. Oh, he did that, did he? He did take. I thought he should have played king round to e4, and that was even better. But has he messed it up again? Has he conceivably messed it up? Probably not, because you can go. Yeah, well, it should be a draw, shouldn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Yeah, okay. No, now it's better for white again. Oh, I'm afraid Luke is. Yeah, this is not going to be won by black, is it? I mean, you can go check and knight f6, for instance. Oh, is he just blundered? Just blundered his pawn. Maybe Luke will win it. That's rather wonderful. What a... Now black's better, yeah. Maybe not enough to win, but certainly better. That really wasn't meant to happen, was it? Oh, what does it say? The engine must say equal, does it? Oh well, if this happens, now basically white is okay again. He can just bring his pieces back. It'll be okay. Oh, what a performance! Got to go back, I think. Doubt if you can go forward. Oh, how many moves have they played? Just watching this mild horror going on. But that was a good trick, wasn't it? Bishop to g1 to h2 if we go back a few moves. I mean, the guy was just thinking, oh, I'm completely okay. Let me just win, let me draw as I like. And suddenly this happens, which he just hadn't seen at all, obviously. And we go to the end, and what has happened? There must... For black to win, he has to set up a Zugzwang with him to move in this position. He'll have to play... Oh, he hasn't even done that. I thought he had to play d4 and then try to come in that way. I mean, I'm sure it's a drawn position, but doesn't matter. You play your moves. I mean, knight f4 is a good move now, actually, to force d4. Not clear who's better again, but it's going to be a draw, obviously, I assume. How many moves have they played since the last capture? Probably doesn't matter. We might as well enjoy this until I don't know if it's enjoyable. Oh, he's had to play this now, has he? Has he got any chances of trapping this horse? Is the horse trapped? Be bad luck, wouldn't it? I suppose you can go... Apparently not. If the knight was on any sensible square, then white would be better now, but... So you go knight to b8, and you can get a knight d4, can you? Yeah. I think there's possible draw in a pawn ending I can see where you play knight d4, gets taken, black plays king d6, white goes c3, takes king e5, b4, king takes pawn, b5, king over, b6, king over, king up, and white wins both pawns. That's possible. Is he managing to do something? Probably not. Oh. What? He won? How did he win? Did he win on time, I suppose? I guess Luke must have lost on time. Anyway, it didn't matter whether he won or drew. He drew or lost. Okay, so that's, I guess, the rather sad end of the broadcast. This is... Naya is trying to win this rook ending now, and I think he is winning it, isn't he? So they're going to go on, I suppose, to Armageddon, which is a great joy for all mankind. Yeah, they're going to Armageddon now. And that's quite impressive. So they'll have Armageddon in a bit, and I hope that people enjoyed it by the time you see it. And I'm going to kill the broadcast now. So it's a complete, it's murder this tournament, absolute murder. Right.